So who is this expert presenter? She's been chatting with us a little bit, but Pubali Chakravorty-Campbell is an accomplished entrepreneur and well-known HR professional. Her passion is sharing knowledge to help businesses grow and succeed. Leveraging her robust background and experience in business administration, executive coaching, and a professional designation as a senior certified HR professional, she specializes in strategic human resources for business owners and leaders who want to align their business goals with those of their workforce and to be employers of choice. Pubali is originally from Louisville, Kentucky, and has been in New England since 1997. As a member of New Hampshire's rich entrepreneurial community, she has won numerous business awards, such as New Hampshire Business Review's Outstanding Women in Business, New Hampshire Magazine's Remarkable Women, and the New Hampshire Union Leaders 40 Under 40. In 2019, she was elected as one of the Granite State's most influential business leaders by New Hampshire Business Review. So with that, please join me in welcoming Pubali Chakravorty-Campbell. Pubali, take it away.
Thank you. And just everyone, I want to start by telling you a genuinely true story and a joke. And I told Will and Beth and Sarah this when I got on, but I want to thank all of you for giving me an opportunity to do my hair and makeup, which I haven't done in a while. And I spent a long time, getting ready to be on camera with all of you today. And I came out of my room and my dogs growled at me because they didn't know who I was for a minute. So I am excited to be here. I hope they figure out that I'm not an intruder. And I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. And as I was hanging out with you all in the lobby, the virtual lobby, so great to see people that are in the same bubble as I am, because I have a pretty close and interesting connection to this topic. And that's why I was so excited when Will and everyone invited me to do this. So in January, I actually resigned from my position. I was working for an HR consulting company, and I resigned to begin a public job search to, really follow my dreams and to follow my personal missions. And I wanted to align with an organization in a capacity that is really this type of subject. I'm an HR strategist by trade, so my focus areas are workforce development, talent management, learning and development, and I wanted to really kind of realize some of these life goals and take this leap of faith. Would I have done it had I known COVID was coming? Yeah, I don't have any regrets because I'm still committed to my search. However, I think that given that I am not just an HR person, I'm an HR person who specializes in this type of work, but I'm also a job searcher. So this is real to me right now, and I'm having experiences right now as a person being interviewed. I'm on the other side of the table. So I'm sharing this with you because I'm hopeful that this will make what I have to talk to you about today more authentic and genuine, because I'm not just coming from the perspective of an HR professional. I'm also coming from the perspective, like many of you are here with career development and that arena, but also from somebody who's live and presently experiencing the adventures of interviewing both in person and virtually. So with that said, let's begin. So right now what's happening is there's a lot of talk about the fact that interviews have gone virtual. And what I want to just put out there and be very clear about is that interviews are interviews. Whether or not an interview, yes, Jennifer, you are welcome to record this. Please go for it. Whether or not interviews are in person or virtual doesn't change best practices, in my opinion. It shouldn't influence you to change any aspect of it. We must acknowledge that it changes certain inherent, nuances of the experience, such as being in a room with a person and potential opportunities to make connections that you wouldn't otherwise make virtually, which I still challenge a little bit. I think you can if you are looking for those opportunities. But I want people to know that these are skills that are transferable. We are not going to be virtual forever. And at some point, we're going to shift back out of this and go into person. So it was important to me today to share information with you that was applicable to both virtual and when we shift back into in-person connections with people. So the first thing to think about, and the perspective and the lens I want you all to look at this through today, is that interviewees, those of us that are sitting down to be interviewed by an employer, are like actors. And the people that are being the employer, the prospective employer, is an audience. And why am I sharing this? This is important because a lot of people at any age, at any career phase, when they're being interviewed, they try to make everyone happy. And anyone who's ever been on stage, I know there's a performer in this audience right now, a musician from Canada, will tell you that any performer who attempts to make their entire audience happy at the same time is actually putting their energy into all the wrong things. Because the reality of being an individual, a person, is we cannot make everybody happy all of the time. So interviewing, when you're looking at this model, when you're thinking about it through this lens, should be an experience where you are not attempting to control something that is in many ways outside of your control, apart from your own performance, right? So what you put into it is what you get out of it. And at the end of the day, if you could put your head on your pillow and say, you know what, I did my best, whether every single audience member loved my show performance or not, don't think about that part, because it will become noise and a distraction to all of us, right? So thinking about it through the performance. So how do we do this? What are the nuts and bolts, right? So I'm going to go through a formula, a process that has worked for me for many years. I'm 41 years old. I've been interviewing for jobs and interviewing others to be employed by me and other people for many, many years. I've been, call it about, 18, 19 years. And well, 20 years, let's be honest. And what is the best process, right? The best process is to start several days before. You think about getting into the right headspace, right? And so you don't want to wait until the last minute. This is something that you think about your performance, right? You want to practice, you want to get into the right space to be a great performer. And the first thing I'm going to tell you is websites, going to a company's website, going to the people that you know who are going to interview you, their LinkedIn, isn't enough anymore. I don't think it was ever enough, but I think now more than ever, we need to go deeper. If you're being interviewed, the odds are that you're going to be getting a job description. Either you pulled one from a site that you originally saw the job on, or a recruiter or someone else has shared a job description with you. There is a lot of information in that job description that you need to understand. When you look through it, when you read through it, don't just read through it so that you know high level. Read through it and think about your personal experience and how it relates to what's in the job description. That's a really important thing. A trend that I'm seeing right now, both being the interviewee, the one who's looking for a job, and also the person who in the past has interviewed others, is how closely connected is the candidate to the job description. I've been asked questions about details in the job description, and had I not practiced this approach, I wouldn't have been able to answer those. So what I like to tell people to do, and what I do, is go through the job description closely. And if you convert it to a Word document, redline it. What are examples of the things that they're saying are happening in the job description? Because you're going to get asked those types of behavioral interviewing questions. Give me an example of a time when you did this. Give me a story of how the outcome was in this situation. You need to be able to respond to those questions, not just whether or not you can do something, but tell me how and why and the details of the outcome. So when you look through the job description, look for examples. Think about examples you can share, stories you can tell. Also, think about what you like about the job description. You need to be able to respond to the questions that they ask you. And if you really go into the second page or the bottom of the page and respond genuinely with facts that you've pulled out of there, it's impressive to people. Wow, they really did take their time. Okay, so these are things you can do to control your own behavior. So I recommend closely studying and then annotating the job description with your relevant experiences and questions. Next is to really connect with the company's core values, mission, and vision. When I was on the side of the person looking for candidates, one of the things I wanted to know was what parts of the way that I'm running my organization and the parts that I'm running my team, what is the alignment between you and me? Because the fit isn't going to be just limited to whether or not you can technically perform the job. The fit's also going to be connected to whether or not you have a connection to the organization, what they're doing and how they're doing it. Familiarize yourself with that. If you're given the opportunity, comment on it. Heck, if you're not given the opportunity, say, you know what I really loved about this is the fact that you guys care about being, servant leaders or whatever they have in their, statements. These are ways that you can demonstrate that you've done your research, that you've invested the time, and it could set you apart from other candidates. The other important part is you're doing all this work. Don't just have it memorized. Put it on paper. I'm a huge supporter of notes. During an interview, you will notice they have paper. You should also have paper. If it's in person, you have a portfolio. If it's online, you should have it set up, in front of you where it's easily accessible so that you can refer to your documents and to the notes. An interview is a dialogue, it's a conversation. And unlike maybe the performance example there where an actor can't read from a script, you're not going to read from a script, but you need to have information easily available so that you can remind yourself and other people of the work you've put into this interview and what you want them to know about you. So that having those on hand is very important. I have seen way too many candidates in my time that come to an interview empty-handed. And it always kind of puts a little bit of a question in my head about what they're going to do in the performance aspect. Some people have delighted and surprised me, other people have not, because they're just kind of walking in the door, right? So again, think about what you have in hand. It's super important that you prepare closing remarks. At some point, your interview is going to end. And depending on how you do, there's going to potentially be several. I just interviewed last week for a job, and it was a job I really wanted. And I'm going to tell you later, I got rejected. We're going to talk about rejection. But as you think about, I think one of my dogs might just be joining the seminar, so just be prepared. When you think about closing remarks, what do you want those last words out of your mouth and into their ears to be? I cannot emphasize enough how important it is, because you're going to be talking a lot. And they're going to remember some things, they're going to forget other things. But those last things that you say to them are going to be very important. So think about preparing remarks about why you want to work for them, what stands out, what is it that you want them to know about you, okay? And lastly, thank you notes, stamps, addresses. Some of you in this audience might be rolling your eyes, others might be clapping. When I interview for a job, my thank you notes are written, stamped, and in the mail as I'm walking out the door. And recently, because they're all virtual, they're in the mail before I even sit down for the interview. And why is that? Because these are the little details that matter. Make sure you have thank you notes ready to go. Make sure that you have stamps ready to go, because the time frame between your interview and when they receive correspondence from you, maybe not everybody is looking for that, but a lot of people are, and they're going to measure your success based on that. Okay, so I want to remind you how important that is, and we're going to talk about this again later. So now you've done some work, right? So this is 3-4 days before you're setting, you're preparing, you're studying, you're getting all of your documents together, preparing yourself. There's more work to do, because the day before is when you do all of your final checks. Okay, and again, I do this because I like to leave the best first impression I think I can leave, but at the same time, you are also trying to make sure that if I'm interviewing you, that you are ready. It's not about impressing me as much as it's you being ready, right? So you want to make sure that 24 hours before you send a confirmation email. I can tell you stories when I was consulting, how many, in the consulting firm, that is, how many people just assumed the interview was a go. They never confirmed it. And so if the person you're interviewing with is overwhelmed or not paying attention or a little bit distracted or a little bit flaky, they may have made a change to their schedule and you don't know. So try to make sure to remember to send that interviewer or interviewers a confirmation email. I'm really looking forward to our interview tomorrow. Do you have any special instructions for me? Whatever. But it's an important contact point, and it's also an opportunity for dialogue. Sometimes it creates new dialogue, Sometimes it doesn't, but it's that little touch point that can make a difference for you later. Document management. What do I mean by that? A few days ago, you sat and you looked through the job description, you annotated it, you made some notes, you've done some things. Make sure you have all of that organized. Make sure it's not a big sloppy pile so that when you're doing the interview itself, and we're going to talk about stillness in a minute, you're shuffling through tons and tons of paper, right? So manage your documents, organize them, have them ready to go. Check your venue. If it's an in-person interview, make sure you know where you're going. Now, this is old information. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but I can tell you how many times when I interviewed, when I was in my previous job at the consulting company, how many interviews started 15 or 20 minutes late because the candidate got lost. It was not an easy office to find, but the candidate kind of came right on time, right? So they drove up maybe 5 or 10 minutes before the interview and they got lost. Now, I am not one of those interviewers that's really strict about that stuff because I know life happens, but some people are. So make sure you check your venue. Same thing goes for virtual. You might think the meeting is Zoom, but it's actually WebEx, right? So make sure you have a link. I interviewed for a position, a high-level position at a very, very prestigious medical institution recently, and I got all of the information. I do this, right? This is my own practice. The day before, the link didn't work. I thought, okay, maybe it's because the link, something's up and it's early. An hour before, the link didn't work. 30 minutes before, the link didn't work. Thank God it was already on my radar because I knew that if it didn't work 10 to 15 minutes in advance, I was going to have to make a phone call. Sure enough, no big deal. Things happen, but there was a mistake. So make sure you check the venue, whatever that venue is, know where it is, what time, all of the details, equipment check. Right now, I'm on AirPods. I've got a light. I've got a laptop. I've got Wi-Fi. I've got a lot of things happening here. Make sure it all works. The last thing you want is the stress and anxiety that comes with the fact that 3 minutes before the interview, you realize your headset is dead, okay? Or your computer has something wrong with it. Check your equipment. Wardrobe check. Let's talk a little bit about wardrobe. I don't need to tell you that when you feel put together, you act put together most of the time, right? Right now, there's this whole thing happening about pants optional because people are only videoing from waist up. You have no idea whether over the course of that interview on the video, that if you may need to sit up or stand up. Now, I can tell you the interview I just did that was 2 hours long, there was an intermission. If I was not dressed appropriately and when I stood up, they would have seen that. So please remember that virtual or not, wardrobing matters, how you look matters. Maybe you don't need to wear a full suit like we used to, that depends on the organization. But if you can't do the test of if they see me, what do they see, then you are not prepared and it could end up biting you in the backside. So please make sure you do a wardrobe check the day before, that you have everything pulled together. Lastly, risk management and self-management. Will and I were just talking about this right before we started. I have a full house at the moment, and so I didn't have an opportunity to contain my dogs, but my husband, my daughter, they know that I have a hot camera and a hot mic. So they've now put themselves away, including the dogs, okay? You need to make sure that you notify people in this virtual time. Even though we're all humans, you should make every effort to make sure there aren't any distractions during your interview. And people that don't take those measures often find themselves feeling the stress and anxiety of having their dogs wrestling or some sort of an event happening. So please make sure that you manage any potential risks that could not, look poorly on you, which it could, but more importantly, distract you, right? It's about your performance. You don't want any distractions. So manage that. And also manage yourself the day before. So this is all happening the day before. What do you need? If you have a big interview tomorrow, maybe the night before you don't drink a whole bottle of wine. Maybe the night before you go to bed a little bit early. You might be anxious. You might be nervous. You might be tense. Managing all of that is very important the day before. Please do not wait until the day of or the morning of to do any of these things, because you need to give yourself time to correct and to adjust. Okay, I'm going to just pause here for a minute This is my practice to make sure, A, that my audience is okay. Are you guys okay? Can you hear me? Is everything all right on your end? And also, any burning, pressing questions you want me to answer before I continue, because the next stop is the day of. So I'll just stop here. Will, if you see anything, will you please let me know?
Nothing has popped up in the chat as of yet. So I think
Okay.
we're good on that front. But again, just as a reminder, if you do have questions, put them in the chat. We will get to them.
Okay, good. And are you guys okay, the audience? Are you all right? Is there anything that you need me to do differently so you can see and hear me better? Give you guys a couple seconds to just write yay, nay, Pubali, do this, do that. Okay, I'm seeing the chat staying pretty much flat, so I will continue. All right. If there's anything I can do better or differently, I want you to tell me, because we don't have a lot of time together and I want to make this time count for all of you. Okay. All right. You won't offend me. This is a conversation. All right. So you're probably going, seriously, Pubali, we haven't gotten to the interview yet? No. Nothing I'm telling you is going to take you, 10 hours, right? This is all just preparation. The few hours before the interview, you're getting ready to go on stage. You're not looking at your lines for the first time. You're not deciding what you're going to wear for the first time. All of that is done. So a few hours before, you need to get yourself ready. Get yourself ready mentally, get yourself ready physically. Silence your mind. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But get dressed, get your space set up, set all your documents up, make sure you know where everything is. Nerves get in the way. Even the most accomplished professionals get nervous before an interview, because if you care and want a job, you're going to do your best to get that job, right? So you want to make sure you're organized. Turn your cell phone off. Make sure on your laptop, if it's virtual, that your notifications are off. In person or not, these are all things that you need to do. You don't want to get to the venue, whether it's in person or online, on time. One of the best quotes I've ever heard is that 5 minutes early is on time is too late is unforgivable. And I will tell you, that is a place where I'm very strict with myself. My husband would disagree, because I'm always late when it's dinner dates and things like that. But for professional things, being on time is very important. So when you get there on time, you have now opened the link to that interview room about 5 or 10 minutes early. Some web applications don't even let you do that, but that's okay. You're there, you're sitting at your computer, you're ready to go. Silencing your mind. What do I mean by this? One thing that I see candidates not doing enough, or telling me that they're doing enough, is taking 5, 10, 15 minutes before a big interview and getting in the zone. Whether that's listening to songs that really pump you up, whether that's a meditation, whatever it is, you don't want to rush into the interview and sit down and go live. You want to be there, and you want your head to be clear. And this is really important. Maybe this is because I spent the first 13 years of my career in the professional fitness industry, but I can tell you that silencing the mind is one of the most important metrics of success when we are performing, whether it's as a stage performance or an interview or some other production that we're putting on. I did it before I started this today. Got into my space, got ready. So these are things you do a few hours before. And finally, it's showtime. You hear the blink and everything comes on. Oh my gosh, it's happening. Here's where I'm going to get very personal and very emotional with you. The first thing is, you must be yourself. When I am talking, maybe a little bit, I'm contradicting myself about the concept of the performance. Remember that the main reason you're interviewing is because you want or need a job, and you want to leave a great impression. You want to be your best self. You cannot be your best self if you're trying to be someone else. If the person on the other side of the table is going to disapprove of what and who you are, it is not going to be a metric of success for you when you get that job. So when we are ourselves and we are doing what we do, what is normal and natural to us, we are more successful organically. I'm a casual joker, okay? I take my work seriously. I take pride in the work that I do. But when I connect with people, I don't put on airs. I don't want to try to pretend I'm something I'm not. I joke around, I'm casual. And I hope my future employer appreciates that. I've interviewed several times with companies already. It's clear to me that they want a candidate who's more buttoned up. Totally fine. That's great. But I am a more casual individual who believes that we're, all equals in some way. And that's the way I show up. And it's worked well for me for over 20 years. That's why I'm telling you to be yourself when you interview. The next thing I'm going to tell you is when you sell yourself, people can tell. When you educate about why you are good at what you do, people can tell. There is a difference between education and selling. I have had roles professionally my whole career. I was a business owner, I was an executive, et cetera, where selling was a part of my job. But to this day, I've never sold anything. I will educate to the best of my abilities about why you should work with me, even now as an interviewee rather, why I believe I'm right for the position, why I believe you should work with my organization, but I'm not going to sell it to you because it changes the context. It makes the conversation feel different. Great salespeople are educators before they're anything else. The next thing is you've got all these notes, right? If you look at your notes the whole time and you read it about why there was this one time that you asked in the job description about my ability to solve group organizational issues and I did this, that's not an interview. You're doing a reading. But if you tell the story of how you did it, that's going to tell the other person a little bit more. If they want to know more about the story, they will ask you. And what gets tricky here, and this is the next bullet, is in our efforts to tell a story, sometimes we talk too much. I might be doing it right now, although I'm watching the clock, so I know I only have so much time with you guys. So we have to make sure that in our preparation, we make some time to balance the length of the story, that we do the most important parts, and then we silence ourselves so that the person can respond to us. I've been doing this type of work for 20 years. I'm telling you that most important thing is if they need to know more, they will ask you. And so tell them what you need them to know and then silence yourself. Next is to take notes and to use your notes, right? You've got all those things you've prepared. When you're virtual, one thing to do when it comes to taking notes is to just say, hey guys, or sirs, madams, whatever, I'm going to look down on occasion because I'm writing. That way they know that you're not petting your dog or, texting, right? So take notes, write stuff down. Odds are your nerves and your excitement is going to get in the way of remembering everything perfectly, okay? Next is the pattern of how to speak to people. This is the training in and of itself, this whole concept of listening. But when someone asks you a question, make sure you are not just hearing them, but you're listening. Because there could be things you miss if you're too worried about how you're going to respond. Listen to the question. Take a second to think about what they're asking you and then respond. It is just as risky to respond too quickly as it is to respond incorrectly. So when you are receiving a question from the person interviewing you, listen, think, and respond. I cannot emphasize enough how important this is because we get excited. We want to tell them why we can answer that question. No, make sure you take that time because it can make a huge difference in the quality of what comes out of your mouth. Now, I only have an hour with you guys. I know this is a lot of material. I mean, this could be a half-day seminar. So, that's why the live Q&A is going to happen if you want to really dig into anything I'm saying. Okay, so I'm going to keep rolling here. Next two bullets are very important to me. Please, please, please remember these next two things. First, in an interview, if you get a question that you can't answer, be proud to say, that's a great question. I have to say, I don't know, but I'm excited to find out. You might not know, and that's okay. And if an organization chooses not to move forward with you because you are comfortable in saying you don't know, that says just as much about them as it does about you. The worst is when a candidate attempts to answer a question in spite of not knowing. That creates negative stuff. We want to avoid that. If you don't know, say so. If you don't know a lot, that's okay too. Because you know what? It may not work out. But if we say, I don't know, then it gives us an opportunity to show that, you know what? The reality of life is you're not going to always know what people ask you. And that's okay. And you should be very comfortable saying that. The next thing is defend yourself. What does that mean? I've had several interviews in the past 2.5 months. It's slowed down quite a bit, but I'm still interviewing. There have been several occasions where the person interviewing said something to me that I didn't agree with about me or my background. I defend myself and I encourage others very professionally and politely, of course, but do not let an interviewer steamroll you. If you say something and they take it out of context or they make an interpretation about you or your background that's not true, you owe it to yourself to defend yourself, okay? And what do I mean by that? Say somebody says to you, well, it looks to me that you don't have a lot of experience in A, B, and C, when in reality you do. So what do? Do you accept that? No. What I would suggest you say is something along the lines of, that's really interesting. I would beg to differ. I'd love to tell you about why I have experience in that, because it shows that you can have a healthy relationship with conflict in the real world. So please think about the importance of defending yourself. Please think about the importance of being comfortable with saying you don't know, because these are important aspects of being successful in the role once you get in there. The last few things are about your behaviors, okay, your physical behaviors. The first is staying still. If you've ever had a video call with someone that's just fidgeting the whole time and moving around and rustling papers and doing this and doing that, it's very off-putting. So do your best to stay still. I talk with my hands. When I teach, I pace and stuff like that. Obviously not doing that now. But when you were talking, it's important to physically be comfortable and to not have distractions and noise. And physical distractions include a lot of extra stuff. So think about the stillness and how it looks to the camera, that if you're fidgeting a lot, it could be disruptive. The next is keep and maintain eye contact. That little glowing light right now on my laptop is the eye. All of your eyes are right there. I have not looked down once, okay? Why? Because your faces are there, but your eyes are here. I'm talking to you. And I'm doing that because I do not want to look down at your faces when I'm talking, because then I'm not looking at you. I'm looking at your picture and you're looking at me. And so as the performer, I owe it to make eye contact with you. So that's a very important thing I want you to keep in mind, is when you're doing stuff on video, look at the camera and not at the face. When you're doing stuff, when you're speaking, of course, when you're in person, it's the same thing. The last thing you want to do when somebody who's representing a company you really want to work at is talking to you is to look away, okay? Because that says a lot that may not be true. So maintaining eye contact is important. Ask great questions. They're going to most likely have a component of that time with you where they're going to say, what kind of questions do you have for me? The time to ask questions like, do you think I'm a good fit for this job? Okay, that's an okay question. But a great question is, what are you looking for in the ideal candidate? Have I said anything to you that brings you any concern about my ability to be successful? What have you enjoyed about your time working at this organization? What else would you want me to know? These open-ended questions are great questions, and it shows that you're comfortable with dialogue, okay? You're gonna also get information. You're going to be comfortable with what you hear because you're now probing them to share some more information with you, right? If they're gonna tell you a bunch of stuff about why they liked working there, which is completely antithetical to your values, you're gonna walk out of that conversation with some information you wouldn't have had otherwise, right? So ask great questions, great resources on the web about great questions to ask. Remember those closing remarks you put together? Use this time for that. I did an interview recently with an organization that ultimately and sadly went on a hiring freeze. I want this job so bad. It's an incredible company. And what did I do? In my closing remarks, I made sure to tell them, I want this job. Now, this is hard for people, okay, to tell somebody you want something, to ask for something. And there's right and wrong ways to do it. But when you are sharing yourself with the audience and you want them to feel a certain way about you, even though you're yes and no kind of trying to please the audience, maybe not everyone, is to say, look, I love this organization. I love your mission. I love your values. It would be a privilege for me to be here. I really, really look forward to the opportunity to work with you. I have been the person hiring for a long time. And when my candidates would tell me that, it changed my perspective. Now, I might be different from another interviewer, but how you say these things matter. Saying them matters. Don't be afraid to say it. Okay, I'm going to take a quick pause because I know I only have about 15 minutes left, so I'm going to move through. We're nearly done. Any burning, pressing questions, anything I can do better or differently before I wrap it up? And I'll lean on Will to help me with that if there's anything that comes up.
No real questions coming through. Had a few good comments, kind of echoing some things that you've said about, defending yourself in interviews and all, and, writing the handwritten thank you notes. But
Oh, yeah.
but I think we're good, at least based on what I'm seeing in the comment section.
Okay, super. So I'll keep going because there's some good stuff coming. All right, thank you notes. I'm going to go back to my thank you notes piece. This is how important this is to me. My personal practice is that if I interview with you, hey, I might interview with you. Who knows? If I interview with you and I have your email address, you will be getting an email from me thanking you for your time and expressing how much I enjoyed my time with you and how much I look forward to the hearing more about the opportunity within the day. That day, you're going to get an email from me. Within a few days, because remember, I've already put my thank you note in the mail, you're going to get a handwritten note. Why do I do that? I do that because I was raised that way. I was raised to have certain type of manners, okay? I also do that because I genuinely want the job. I want you to know I want the job. I don't interview for jobs that I don't want, okay? It's a personal practice because it's not good for me, it's not good for them. And if I'm interviewing, it's because I'm super excited about this opportunity. But when you tell someone how you feel about them, you are taking the mystery of whether or not you're a good candidate out for them. So these things in the modern time, back in the day, email wasn't as popular. Today, email is popular, and it's a perfectly acceptable way to communicate an immediate gratitude, an immediate excitement, and follow up with a thank you note. And I told Sarah, who works with the company, with Stay Work Play about this. I am so detail oriented. You probably won't be able to see this. I don't want to torture you guys with blocking the camera, but I have my thank you notes custom made. And I have them custom made because it gives me the opportunity to put, you can't maybe see this, but it has my name right here from my desk. And then on the back, I picked a quote that I really like. And I hope somebody here will be sometime given the opportunity to get this because I love my thank you notes. But why? Because I'm genuinely grateful for your time. And I want you to know that. So put a lot of thought into the thank you note because then you know that you've done your best, right? So this part is important. Do not forget the thank you note. Okay. This picture creeped my whole family out. I want to shift gears a little bit. Okay, we've talked a lot about tactics. We've talked a lot about best practices. In the last few minutes, I want to talk about things that are important for you to know. The other side of the table, the employer, the person who is doing the interviewing. You are walking in to an environment, into a situation that you have no idea about when we're an interviewer, when we are a candidate. When I walk into interview, I have no idea of the politics of the situation. I don't know what the mood of the hiring manager is. I don't know if an hour before they found their dream candidate, and there is no way that I'm going to be able to hold a candle to that person no matter how well I do. There is so much that we don't know when we are the candidate that I wanted to make sure you today walk out of this conversation with the understanding. This is why when we interview, the energy needs to be on making sure we do our personal best and not controlling the behavior of others. This is not a knock on employers. I know there's people listening right now that are employers. Employers also have responsibility to the candidate to put on their best face, but that's not always possible. And even the best HR departments will have a hiring manager who has a personality or an approach that doesn't necessarily align with what HR wants them to do. In my career as an HR professional, on the side where the interviewer is coming to me, meaning I'm the one who's involved with the hiring manager, I have seen unbelievable things, and I don't necessarily mean positive. Being someone who's having the decision of giving somebody a job, if you know anything about the Stanford prison experiment, which is, if anyone here is a psych major or a business school student like I am, you know that power can get to people, and that influences the experience the candidate has during the interview. Again, this isn't a knock. This is the reality of what some of you are walking into. And those of us that have been doing this for a while, we understand this, right? And that doesn't make it any easier. I just want you to know this. There is a lot going on the other side. And if you have an experience, please do not make the assumption that it has something to do with you, okay? It might, if you're not doing well, it might, but you don't know, right? You don't know. So because there's so much you don't know, when you are interviewing, don't let what you perceive influence your performance. When I do trainings and education with people on communication and conflict management, I have a saying. I say, respond to what you know, not to what you think. And as a person who's been teaching for a very long time, great teachers know that if you look at the one student who's looking at you like, oh, they just want you to just play in traffic, and you try to teach that one person, it changes your experience with the entire group. So because you don't know what's happening on the other side, and you're only left with what's in front of you, you have to continue your journey doing the best you can with a great attitude, and ask questions if you need clarity, but please don't let what you perceive influence your performance, okay? You don't know if they think you're the best candidate on earth, but the way they're acting, you're not. And there's different types of interviewing. There's stress interviewing, okay? There's behavioral interviewing. There is interviewing that is more cognitive. They're trying to test your ability. You may be invited to do tests, take tests. I've done case studies for interviews. I've taken exams for interviews in the past 2 months. So there's a lot that goes into it. So I think I've beaten this dead horse. I think you get it. But remember, there's a lot going on, and you should not try to control all of that because you don't know what that is. And the next part is important. You're going to get a rejection, okay? Maybe you won't. I hope you won't, okay? But I can tell you how many I've gotten in the past. I resigned from my job in January voluntarily. It was a very positive thing. It wasn't a bad thing. I wanted to go on this leap of faith journey, okay? I believe I'm good at what I do. I've been doing it for a long time. I'm excited about starting my values-based search for a mission-based organization in this arena of career, talent, all this stuff. 22 rejections. 22 rejections. That's the count. I keep a count, okay? And I've been rejected in person. I've been rejected over the phone. I've been rejected over email. I've been rejected over generic email. I've been told I have too much experience. I've been told I don't have enough experience. You guys, if you let that rejection affect your view of yourself, then you are letting yourself down. It is very important in this section that I tell you that you do have to be introspective. Are you getting rejections because of things you could do better or differently? It's possible. Are they all wrong? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that rejection hurts. And depending on your personality and your style, if you get enough rejections or you get the right kind of a rejection, it can start having you question your abilities and question whether or not you are someone that's hireable. And I want you to know, take it from me, that even the most accomplished people in the world, and I'm not saying I am, I'm just saying, in general, will get a rejection. They will be told something. So coping with rejection is an important aspect of this presentation for me, because you will be doing all of the stuff, presumably, that I just told you to do. I don't want to have you walk away from this conversation saying, oh, you know what? It's a guarantee shoe. And if I do all of these things Pubali said, I'm going to get the job. It doesn't work like that, you guys. The way it works is you do your personal best. And when that rejection comes, and if that rejection comes, you take it and you say, all right, what can I learn from it? Could I have done anything better or differently? If you feel comfortable, if you feel like you created a relationship with the person interviewing you, you might even want to ask them, you know what? I want to learn from this. Could I have done anything better or differently? So far in my personal job search journey, I have not had a rejection come from someone that I felt comfortable enough asking. But if that opportunity presents itself, I will. Okay? So rejection is tough. I want you to know, don't let that discourage you. Keep trucking, keep moving forward. You will be successful if you stick with your values and your mission, and you find an organization that aligns with you and the way that you show up. Okay, but that doesn't mean you don't do things to also improve and to look inwards and say, maybe I need to do something differently and better. Okay, with that said, I am 8 minutes out from my conclusion, so I wanted to leave some time to have a conversation with those of you that want to. When that time comes, I'm actually going to put everything back on so we can do it in person. But you've got this. If you're somebody helping others in the career development arena, I hope I've been helpful to you. If you are a student or you're someone who is looking for a job at any age, at any career stage, guys, you've got this. Do your best and stay positive. It's been a pleasure having the opportunity to share all this information with you. And my information is here. If you have any questions, if you want to continue this conversation, please reach out to me. And I would be delighted to talk with you because I love the subject. All right. With that, I will keep the slide up and turn my little camera piece on, and we can have a little Q&A.
All right, thank you, Pubali. This was awesome. A lot of great information, and I know I've seen in the comments a lot of people saying thank you and being very appreciative of you sharing your time and expertise with us today. We do have a few questions coming in. I know we only have a few minutes, so we'll go ahead and get started. Somebody asks, what about leave behinds in addition to a thank you note as something that allows them to remember you after the interview has ended? Any suggestions on this?
That's a really great question. I think you have to know, I think it depends a little bit on where you're going. I don't think there's anything wrong with the leave behind. I think depending on the profession you are in, you may need to leave a dossier behind or some marketing material that shows about your talents and abilities. I have to say that in my personal experience to date, I have not been in a situation where I needed to leave anything behind apart from the conversation. So I think you just really need to think about what it is you're leaving behind and why. If it's a gift, I will say, if it's a gift or if it's something like that, it could have a connotation of, not bribery, but kind of like a little bit trying to here's something, quid pro quo. So I would just caution against things that are too extreme in that capacity. But I think a thank you note is suffice, and if it's the right environment, then a leave behind is perfectly fine. Hopefully, it's not too indirect of an answer.
Okay, next, had a couple of questions with regard to emailed thank you notes. I'll kind of, read them both and then let you respond since they're on the same topic.
Okay.
The first is, does receiving a response from an emailed thank you note have any weight on your position as a candidate, or is not receiving a response normal? The second, can you share your thoughts on emailed thank you notes? While those of us older, a written note is best, but for those millennial employers, might they appreciate an email?
So yes, I'll begin by saying in my mind, correct is both. It's not an either or. To me, the email is an instantaneous thing. And I think that it is just a way to keep a dialogue going. Um, and the thank you note is a must. I mean, that is just an absolute must. So the person who asked about, whether or not there is an expectation by the interviewer, the company, to get that, I don't, when I do this personally, as the person who's looking for a job and interviewing, I don't do it for any other reason than them to demonstrate genuine gratitude and excitement about the fact that I had this opportunity. And I actually will write in my email, I have a thank you note. It's my practice to send a thank you note, and it's on its way. But until then, I just wanted to express again how grateful I am for the time you shared and how excited I am about this opportunity. It's a very short email. And whether or not they respond, I think that I don't think I would have time to tell the story. I have an amazing story about this, but I have not received a response apart. And let's say I've sent, 22, just many of these notes. Of all of them that I've sent, I've only heard back twice. I don't think a lot of people will write back. I really don't. I think they receive it and they go, oh, that's nice. And then they don't respond because, it's an awkward situation for them, which I respect. I got 2 responses. I got one back where the person said it was nice to meet me and they wished me the best of luck, which I thought was very nice. Of course, after I calmed down interpreting that, what does that mean? What does that mean? It means nothing. It just, they wish me the best of luck. The one that I have to quickly tell you is I recently interviewed with a company. It was a very difficult interview. I did not do well. I was rejected. I mean, I think I did the best I could, but they didn't feel like I was right for them. And I sent this thank you note, and the response I got a couple of days later from one of the people that interviewed me was pointing out mistakes I made, technical mistakes I made. And I got that, and it's the first time in my career I've ever received anything like that or heard of a candidate getting an email from an interviewer that was not the hiring manager, that was, hey, you messed up on this answer. This is the right answer. You gave the wrong answer. Now, I appreciated it because there's an opportunity to correct myself, but I have to say it was from an HR perspective, I remember thinking to myself, that's just not a good employee value proposition thing to do. I think being nice and saying it was nice to meet you too should have been enough. But so, I think not expecting a response is best. Probably a way longer answer than they expected. Hopefully that's a helpful answer.
All right, and I know we're kind of rounding up on our 12 noon hour here, so one last question. How long should you wait after an interview for a response, and how long should you wait to reach out if you don't hear anything afterwards?
Oh my gosh, I understand this and I struggle with it constantly. I think that courtesy time to give someone is a week. And, it depends. I understand because as a person currently looking for a job, my schedule is different than the person who's interviewing me. I'm consulting and I'm in graduate school, blah, 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 but still I want to know right away because I'm excited and I'm nervous, right? I give people a week, and I'm not afraid to follow up with people in a week and say, hey, I really enjoyed meeting you. Would love if do you have any feedback or advice, or, because I think it's important to keep the conversation going and to not be afraid of that. Anything less than a week, I think, is a little bit, it can come across negatively. That's my opinion. But I think if you want something, you need to go get it. No one's going to hand you something, right? So following up is important if you do it the right way. And a business week, I think, is fair. Between 5 to 7 business days is I think fair and reasonable. That's my professional opinion.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Pubali, for, again, all of this, that your time and expertise that you've shared with all of us here today.
My
It's
pleasure.
very much appreciated. And, as you can see in the comments, if you have a chance to go look at those, people are
I'm going to look at it right now.
valuable information, the great presentation and your style, and it's just very much appreciated. So from all of us at Stay Work Play and everyone on the Zoom meeting today, thank you so much.
Absolutely. And if people, if you need to drop off, there's somebody that asked a question, shorter seminar, how do those people in my age bracket, better compete for positions? Yeah, that is, yes. So the person who asked that, Ms. Jennifer, I think that's a great offline conversation. I shared my contact information with you. Let's have a call and talk about it, because I'm dealing with that too. I'm 41, right? So it's not legal, but there are some things that happen around that. So I'd love to have a conversation about that. But thank you, everyone. And if there's anything more I can do, I'm happy to hang out and chat with people.
All right. Well, thank you again. And thanks for everyone for taking part today. And if you're in the mood for more great content, Stay Work Play is going to be having our Changemaker Summit, New Hampshire Next Summit for Young Changemakers, all next week, starting on Monday the 27th, every day at 2 o'clock. You can find more information at stayworkplay.org/nh-next. So with that, thank you all for taking part today, and have a great